sometimes you come to a subject that you know very little about, and obviously the first once you've decided to make the film, or you've been commissioned to make the film, first step is to get yourself fully informed. Sometimes actually that can be learning the language of whichever country you're going to, or at least learning enough that you can be polite. So it's just doing the preparation. The first composer film I made was about Wolfgang Mozart, and people were talking K numbers, K230, K61. I didn't know what a K number was. Of course, very quickly you learn that it's referring to the organizational system by a guy called Kirchel. But I think one of the things I always try to do is write down at the beginning what I think I know about this subject, so that I don't forget. I don't start taking things for granted. I just don't start using terminology that my audience aren't going to follow. And in terms of music, anyone in the music world won't think twice about the idea that a symphony will have, or a piano concerto will normally have 3 movements. But there will be millions of people that won't know what you mean by movement, or know that it's divided into 3. Usually you can spot them because they're the ones that clap at the end of the first movement, and other people kind of look askance. Well, how are they supposed to know? You look at an orchestra. Again, it's about being curious. If you look at an orchestra, why are there 3 basses? Why are there, well, it can vary, but let's say 12 violins? Well, it's because you're balancing out the sound, and the brass is loud, so you only necessarily need 1 or 2 trumpets, but the violins are quieter, so to get an equivalent sound, you need 12 of them. The difference in, so it's basically kind of learning all this stuff. So part of it is just asking questions, going to talk to a cellist and asking, well, what is it about your instrument? How does it do this? Why does it do that? What type of music is it most suited for? So on and so forth. Then, of course, the next thing, of course, is just to work with experts. And so, again, when I had Mozart, I employed somebody who was a music expert to work with me throughout the whole project. We went to somebody else who worked for an orchestra to help us make the choice of what pieces would form the biographical backbone. Every time I interviewed a musician, a pianist, whatever, violinist, I would say, what pieces do you think should be in the film? What would be odd not to be included? What should we be asking about that particular piece? So you've just got to stay open throughout the whole process. And of course, then gradually you start picking up more and more. There's a very good radio program in the UK. In some ways, it's a bit tricky to listen to, but it's of somebody who will focus on a particular piece and listen to different orchestras playing it and point out the differences. It is pretty educational, I have to say, but it's also instructive. But the other thing, of course, is not to get too wrapped up in that, not to feel that somehow because you can't hear the difference between the Berlin Phil and the London Symphony, that somehow you're not worthy of listening to. Of course, ultimately musicians are writing music to have an impact. And if it's having an impact on you, I do this podcast called Painting of the Week, and I do it with a friend of mine who's constantly kind of slightly nervous that she doesn't have the art history background. And I say, really, if a Van Gogh has an impact on you because of the immediate visceral pleasure that those colors give you, that's fine. And there are no stupid questions. If you want to say, well, why is he painting a sunflower? Actually, it's a very smart question. Why does he paint sunflowers? We made a whole film about Van Gogh's sunflowers to explain why he did different ones in slightly different ways. So again, not being afraid to ask questions. That's part of the fun of doing what we do, is asking questions and trying to find the answers.